Welcome back, folks. Another article. Well, welcome back to another session of Come Learn with me. This is Greg Silverman, your CIO. Let's get all the admin out of the way. We rate all the articles that we curate and put out there, and we see which ones everyone likes, and then we do a quick reading of them to learn a little bit more. We'll summarize some of the data points and put them below the post. If you don't want to listen to this or watch this, you can just read the 4 or 5 bullet points to get the gist of the article. If you want to know how we invest and put some of these ideas into practice, investment practice, at the end of the video, I'll flash a little URL and you can come visit us there and learn more. But for now, let's get into this. We are very interested in electric flying taxis. So this looks like an article about that. A rendering of a Lillium jet in flight. The company is planning to build a vertiport in Lake Nona. All right. With NASA partnership, Orlando begins planning for air taxis, flying cars. Oh, Orlando, there you go. That's going to be fun. Orlando is preparing for when flying cars an option for those who want to soar over congested highways or between nearby cities, and they may arrive far sooner than 2062 as the Jetsons predicted. The city has signed onto a partnership with NASA to develop strategies for welcoming electric oversized drones which take off vertically from landing pads called vertiports. The city's first vertiport is to be built by the German company Lillium. It's planned for Lake Nona area. Though officials suspect the mode of transportation could take off in coming years, so far the Federal Aviation Authority hasn't approved any such vehicles for use. But a recent study found that a piece of a projected $2.5 billion market could be in play for early adopters of the technology. We've heard from different adopters that their hope is to be in operation with passengers sometime in 2024, 2025 timeframe. It's not far away. Said Jacques Coulon, an Orlando Transportation Planning Projects Coordinator. For us, that means they'll want to have vertiport in place, and so we'll need to have regulations set and full understanding of what those impacts are before then. Nancy Mendonca, a NASA official working with Orlando and other governments in the partnership, said the agency had heard from the FAA that companies are already applying for certifications for potential air taxis. Local governments play a key role in charting the path for so-called advanced air mobility because city codes determine things like zoning rules for vertiports, economic development surrounding the stations, and other important rules and infrastructure. You almost think that somebody should do this outside the US where it's maybe less restrictions. Coulon said there could be several vertiports throughout Orlando soon as the technology becomes more mainstream. Last year, Lillium reached a deal with the city of Orlando and Tavistock Group, Lake Nona's developer, to build its vertiport, which could be the first in the United States. The city agreed to pitch in about $1 million over 10 years in the form of property tax rebates, where the company complies with job creation and wage requirements. It's estimated to cost about $25 million for the port with 2 landing pads and the ability to charge 8 vehicles. Lillium's planes are battery powered and have 36 engines, officials said at the time. At first, trip costs would rival a luxury flight, but could decline to rates similar to a car trip in about a decade. The city's plan is expected to include a review of positive and negative economic, environmental, and community impacts. Coulon also said it will focus on equity in hopes of paving the way for vertiports to eventually be spread around the city so they're accessible to people of all neighborhoods and income levels. The initiative, part of Mayor Buddy Dyer's future-ready city priority, drew criticism from some Central Floridians frustrated with the region's lacking transportation infrastructure on the ground. Sam Gallagher, who advocates for transit upgrades and bicycle infrastructure, acknowledged it's good for the city to have an eye towards the future, but he said Orlando has some more pressing needs. They haven't really got a grasp of what is on the ground right now, and that really needs to be a priority in general for the city, he said, citing the need for bike lanes and complete streets. We're constantly ranked the most dangerous for people walking. After a tweet from the city's account promoted the NASA partnership last month, a few dozen accounts, and NASA's pretty close by in their takeoff facilities, right? A few dozen accounts responded to criticism of the city's lack of downtown bike lanes and train systems that doesn't run on the weekends. I love you, Orlando, but we haven't even mastered pedestrian safety or public transportation, and I highly doubt a working-class mom who works at the airport would benefit from this. State Republican tweeted, let's be a present-ready city first. This reminds me of all the people criticizing billionaires for going to space because they should be focused on the ground. So it's, yeah, I guess it's a knock, but it's not going to stop progress here. Mendonca, NASA's Deputy Advanced Air Mobility Mission Integration Manager, said cities interested in planning reflects a lesson learned from schoolers, which were criticized when they rolled out in many cities in recent years with limited regulation. I think electric aircraft flying overhead is a bit different to having scooters on the ground. But in Orlando, the city learned after launching them in needed parking infrastructure and better instructions for where their use was allowed. I think there have been some lessons learned there, she said. I think it's great the cities are starting to lean forward and look ahead. Coulon said the work will be advantageous in the coming years when air taxis will be more than science fiction. We saw this coming to our backyard and we just didn't want to wait and see what happened, he said. Are going to come most likely whether we do anything or not. So for us, we want to plan for them. That's great. That's great. Yeah, very interested in flying taxis, electric powered. It's the thing of the future. It's coming. All right, guys, if you want to learn how to invest with us, how we invest in flying taxis, amongst other things, head over to this URL. It's got some links there where you can read about more of our philosophy and our process in investments and how we go about structuring things. So thanks for joining me for another interesting session of Come Learn With Me. Greg Silverman with this meteorite flowing past me, right behind me. Out for now.